We are back with part 2. And this one is going to start with our lovely people from this lovely cartoon, anime, however it's called. Okay, so the Emperor's New Groove, we have Pacha, who's the functional adult, secure attachment figure, and so compassion and kindness, but also the modality of direct communication. And in fact, he imparts wisdom thanks to his journey with Cusco. However, it ends with Cusco not being able to move into the next step, and therefore to take accountability and to have a functional adult manner and say, you know what, you're right. So we're going to get to that in a minute of why you're right. Not that Pacha wants the right. That's the whole point of why he's the functional adult and the secure attachment figure, because he can tell when a person is emotionally struggling, and that's because they're sensitive. And he's not justifying it, but he knows this is unimportant to make a stand on, because there's the law when we need anything to take a stand on, not anything else. So people that are functional adults, Enlightenment Soul Age Group, functional adults again, Zen masters, 5D mystics, the ones who have compassion and kindness, it means integration of the brain, our birthright. And so you learn to be here in your soothe system, and you learn how to use what is really your capacity to be meta-aware. I know neuroscientists talk about it like some big feat, but I did it organically. And I'm pretty sure you can do it too, because there's nothing that makes me unique in a sense. I'm a human, I got a human body. I had secure attachment, a third attunement, authoritative parenting style, repairing ruptures. My driver is self-agency, but I also have bonding and certainty. So like you, I went through all the journey of life. The difference is, human love narrative versus the human suffering love narrative, which they sit in their temporal junction. So I've learned how to be meta-aware, because you can only do that really with your prefrontal cortex as you look to chit-chatter from the left, and emotions come up, and instead of using them and exaggerating the emotions, because the thoughts don't mean anything, it's the emotions that exaggerate everything. And that's determined until you learn to heal trauma and attachment wounds, and therefore you change into a flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, stable brain, which means integration. So you learn to be the optimized version of you. And you actually do return home for those who did have basically small trauma and big trauma, attachment wounds and ruptures, and all this stuff that beautiful, beautiful therapists, somatics, EMDR, again, and child parts work, great combo, and the therapist must see you already as whole and inform you that you are not a diagnosis, that you are not to be pathologized, that you have room to grow, because yourself is a verb and it can become whole. So they will give you the updated information. Now, if you don't believe in it, you're probably going to look for the old ancient people who give you a label and say, here's your medication and that's it, and you're happy with that. If you're a person who understands that your biology, your brain, your body, it always wants to return to its optimized version, then that's going to be a different story, isn't it? Okay, so let's put that to the side and back to Pacha, functional adult, and he's most likely Enlightenment, Soul Age Group material. He's not a 5D mystic, he doesn't have clairs. We have Cusco. Cusco is the adaptive child. It's a teenager, 14, 15, 16. It's unfair. I don't want to listen to adults. I'm going to spite you every time I can. 3-year-old, 1-year-old, needing the adult secure attachment figure in order to feel safe haven. So for their nervous system to get out of distress and to feel safe, secure, and that means soothed, essentially. So because Pacha is wise and in his ventral vagal nervous system, he doesn't get reactive. And like the Zen master in Sadhguru's story, he doesn't say forgive, forgive, forgive. No, he actually engages in dialogue with Cusco. And here's where Cusco, along the story, actually shows quite many traits of what would be shame, blame, fault, revenge, and anything that is adaptive childlike, which is not necessarily big trauma or small trauma. It's human suffering love narrative. So let me explain. But before I do, we got the squirrel who does a nice act, but just because of, oh, I'm nice. The minute that Cusco is reacting with fear and throws the acorn back at the squirrel's now angry. And the minute he gets the opportunity to take revenge, it's not some small thing. No. Cusco falls in a pit with leopards or whatever they are. I think they're leopards. The purple ones, they look like eggplant purple. And the squirrel goes in and tries to get him killed. That's not nice. And that's actually people who say, I now have a right to actually think that you're that evil, and to people do that. I did a nice thing. I was nice. They did. My wrath, the wrath. 4D mystics, I've seen them. They get really interesting when they're talking about their twin flames, their soulmates, any other person that they're reading about. They're spying on you. I've seen them. So this is pretend I'm nice. It's basically, since I'm a saint, the minute you turn against me, I'm going to become your worst enemy, and I'll just say it's my shadow side that I'm working on, and there you go, I got my shadow. 4D mystics have a lot of stories that they use to allow themselves to continue perpetuating what is human suffering love narrative. And teenager land, again, when you ask functional adults who's meta-aware, and it's like, wow, they're justifying their anger circuit, which obviously is doing what an anger circuit does. Their window of tolerance is out, skyrocketed. They're reactive. They're completely not choosing any of this. Actually, they really need a good therapist to get their window of tolerance, because their chaos is seriously out of whack. So the squirrel's out of whack. I mean, the fact that you're laughing about this poor llama, you're actually going to maybe help to kill because he's in a pit with, that's not funny. I mean, it's a cartoon. So the cartoon's funny, but I'm saying there's people who actually, with their tarot readers, look into, oh, they're spying on you. Oh, they're getting caught. Oh, they're like a movie. You don't even need the movies. Just go there. Okay, so let's move to the other characters. As I said, I think Kronk and Yzma. Kronk is basically so good, just good. That's it. So he teaches at the end. He has a bunch of Boy Scouts, even though it's a mixed group, so I don't remember if they call it Scouts and that's it, but Boy and Girl Scouts. And we have Yzma, who's now become a cat, and the squirrel. The squirrel is part of the group as well, because the squirrel definitely needs to learn about kindness and compassion. Best person, yes. Kronk definitely can share the goodness of, just be, life is so beautiful. So on that note, Yzma, on the other hand, she oversteps her boundaries again and again by thinking, because I've been here for a long time, I have a right to take and do the emperor's job, which he says you don't. And she doesn't care. And so at a certain point, she gets fired. And instead of taking that she gets fired, she now decides, I'm going to kill Cusco. And she tries to kill Cusco by getting Kronk to do the dirty work, because Kronk doesn't actually have the ability to be strategic. That way he mixes up the potions. Okay, so we have our story where Cusco gets turned into a llama. He doesn't know who did it. He just finds himself in the middle of nowhere. Pacha, on the other hand, had been called in by the emperor for his expertise of his town, and that's because the emperor wanted to build his playground, his Bath playground vacation spot for his 18th birthday. It's my birthday gift to me, is how he says. And Pacha says, well, where will we go to live? And he says, I don't care, but you better get forms as you're walking out, because you're going to be moving. And so we begin the story this way. And so then Pacha finds himself with this llama. He's a herd llama person, however that word is. And you, throughout the story, understand, obviously, that the two are going to go on an adventure. And the first thing is that the emperor does not know how to get around. He has a horrible sense of direction, and Pacha doesn't, because he knows how to get around. And so they shake hands, and Pacha says, don't shake if you don't mean it. But they shake hands, and Pacha keeps his word. The shaking hands is, I'll bring you home, but you don't destroy my village. And he says, yes, but he lies, the emperor. When at the end, finally, all has gone well, Cusco and Pacha are sitting there. Pacha's sad about his kingdom, or his, town being destroyed. And the emperor says, he says, you lied to me. You told me that there were birds that would sing. So he doesn't know how to say, you know what, you're right. I'm not going to destroy your town, because that's the wrong thing to do. No, he says, you lied to me. And Pacha knows what Cusco is doing. And he says, I heard some singing in the hill next to us. And that gets Cusco to have a little house, not his whole villa, and they live happily ever after.